Welcome to Welfare Clinic. Tonight we're going to be discussing about COVID and businesses. As you know, during coronavirus, business has been struggling, especially the Asian catering industry. Prior to coronavirus, Asian catering industry was already struggling due to the staffing crisis. Is this final nail in the coffin for the industries? Is in many businesses going to say goodbye and close their doors to the public? These are some of the issues we're going to discuss tonight with two of my guests. My first guest I'm going to introduce is Shah Lalon Amin, who is the managing director for Delhi Six and entrepreneur. Shah Bhai, welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me.
Hello.
Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. Hello. Hello. Hi, thank you for having me.
I can hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear me, Oliur. Assalamualaikum.
Right.
Lalon bhai, I'm not sure. There's obviously a technical glitch. So if you can hear me,
Yes.
please do. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Welcome to Oliur's show. So I think we're going to be presenting the show this evening due to a technical glitch. So I'm more than happy to take over. How are you, bhai? How's business going?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Sorry,
Assalamualaikum.
there'll be technicality issues. So, as I was introducing Shah Lalon Amin Bhai, who is the managing director for Delhi Six and entrepreneur. Shah Bhai, welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me, and it's good to be on this show.
Walaikum salam. And my next guest, also very well known, very popular, very funny character. I'm sure he's going to throw a few jokes tonight. Is Samad Al Samad, company director for Spice Lounge. Samad Bhai, welcome to the show.
Assalamualaikum, Oliur bhai, Lalon bhai, Lasun, and thank you, Bhaiya, for having me on your show.
No problem. Walaikum salam. Let me start with you. Let me start with you, Samad Bhai. You are a company director for Spice Lounge. You've been in catering industry for quite some time. Just to get a little bit more about you, what made you go into restaurant business and not anything else?
It was a little bit of a mixture, really. Some of it was by accident going into business. Other parts was really purely because I had been working within the sector as on a part-time basis. I did explore other avenues. However, I found that this was my route of career purely because I really enjoying interacting with customers, with people, communicating. I found office type jobs, to be honest, it just didn't do anything for me. Sitting in a desk, pushing a pen and paper, filing paperwork, etc. I just did not find it exciting enough for me.
You find restaurant business more challenging, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. You get people from all walks of life. Us humans, you know, we are creatures that you can't predict. You know, you have customers who come in which you would never expect, i.e., like celebrity customers, and then you have other customers. We all have preconceptions of customers. You know, we kind of judge a book by its cover. We shouldn't do, it's prejudice, but we do. You know, we say, wow, Oliur Bhai's dressed so smart, and I'm just in a shirt and Lalon Bhai. We make calls on judgments. However, you know, so many times we find ourselves that we are making the wrong calls purely because of the way someone looks or the way someone talks, you know. So alhamdulillah, I think being in that industry, you meet so many people from all walks of life, and it gives you, I suppose, some education into how to interpret others. Good communication skills.
Shah Bhai, let me just ask you same question quickly. So you are owner of Delhi Six and My Delhi as well, two restaurants.
That's correct.
Uh,
That's correct.
and was that
We own.
your connection? Was it through family connection, or did you set them up yourself?
First one, Delhi 6, I set it up myself with my business partner, and my Delhi is with my business partner as well as my brothers, my two elder brothers. And we run my Delhi, which is the Newcastle city centre. And the one that I run, Delhi 6, was set up by myself and my business partner, who's also my friend. And I was inspired by my father. I used to go to this very restaurant when I was a child, and I used to see my father. He was a successful restaurateur. I was really inspired by his, pristine suits and his boot aftershave. And I just loved the way he would charm his customers, the way he would run this very busy restaurant. And when I was a child, I thought to myself, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And so my father inspired me.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. So just to crack on with our actual show tonight, COVID and businesses. As I said in my introduction, many businesses suffering because of coronavirus. Many businesses that I personally know are struggling, and they might eventually have to close their doors permanently, purely because they cannot manage, especially um, ca- Asian catering industry, but not just the Asian catering industry, but also other smaller SME businesses are struggling. In your opinion, Samad Bhai, because you had in my introduction that prior to coronavirus, especially Indian restaurants was struggling already because of staffing crisis. Do you think they will be able to sustain post coronavirus?
Thank you for bringing up a brilliant subject. Yes, if we're narrowing it down to our industry, the curry industry in particular, I think we as a curry industry, we are very resilient. You know, we like a good fight and we put up a good fight. You know, we don't take things lying down. We've been struggling for the time that I've been in business, 25 odd years. You know, I've always seen some kind of staff crisis, lots and lots of challenges. You know, the struggles come with the challenges. You know, it's hand in hand. You know, when you're faced with a challenge, you don't know what to do, you will struggle. But I think what it is nowadays, the taboo of having family members, and when I say family members, having your wife maybe helping you, having your daughter maybe helping you, is a little bit of a thing of the past. You know, is more acceptable, and we're finding a lot of restaurants are now employing their own family members to help out. You know, I'm sure they did in the past, but it was very rare. And I think that's one of the ways our industry is actually tackling this situation with staff crisis. If you want me to follow up your question in terms of what's COVID done, I think COVID just escalated the situation. It's just fast forwarded what would have been inevitable. Of course, there will be closures. It's a little bit about a survival of the fittest. Those of us who are willing to move on with the times will stay on the foot for a longer period. Those of us who think, you know, we are invincible, you know, we're made of iron, we will not be beaten. Unfortunately, that's not true. You will always have, bullets shot at you by, general people. You have customers who make, false complaints. You have competitors making false reviews. There's all sorts of challenges. And I think coupled with the fact that, you've got this pandemic now, our industry, I know you said, a lot of people were facing closures. Although we're facing closures, I still see there are businesses being opened in this pandemic. I've seen restaurants and takeaways, opportunists that they feel that they could do something, they could maybe materialize on the situation. As people know, someone's misfortune is someone else's fortune. So I think a lot of people who we say, oh, their business is closed, is being taken over by someone else. So only time is going to tell if we have true facts and figures, how many is closed and how many is actually reopened. So perhaps my good and older and more experienced brother, Lalon could perhaps answer your question fully.
Yeah, before I go to Lalon Bhai, I would like to remind our viewers you can watch us live on our YouTube channel London Bangla and Facebook page London Bangla. Lalon Bhai, I want to ask you can come into the question I asked Samad Bhai, but I also want to ask you, do you think the government has done enough? Obviously, at the beginning of the pandemic, they gave furlough scheme 80%. Now they are giving two-thirds to the employees. When your bills comes end of the month, you cannot say to your bill companies, I'm going to pay two-thirds of the payment because I'm only getting two-thirds support from the government.
Very much. Really good question. Something that Samad Bhai mentioned, which was resilient. I completely agree that the Asian industry is run by resilient businessmen and women. It's built on sacrifices. It's built on a foundation of making nothing into everything, and we are a resilient people, a people who will not take no for an answer. And like Samad Bhai said, we will, we'll overcome the challenges. I've seen the staff crisis over the years. However, what I do think is COVID highlighted the weaknesses that was already existing in our Indian trade. We haven't had a long-term strategy. We knew all along that there would be a crisis, but we never put into place any long-term measures. And what COVID done is emphasize the importance to come up to the new age of digital technology, enhance and diversify your business. And all across the country, I think people are now asking themselves, how can we overcome the challenges that we are facing with the restrictions and with the lockdowns? If you just look at the numbers, how many restaurants improvise and turn their restaurants into takeaways overnight? How many restaurants turn their restaurants into delivery hubs and they ran it successfully? How many restaurants automatically within 1 week set up with Just Eat and all the other mediums, digital technologies? And that goes for the resilience and how we improvised and the creativity of these restaurant owners. Myself included, we did deliveries throughout the lockdown. We've still continued to do the deliveries. I never thought that we would ever be doing deliveries from our restaurant, but times have now commanded that we do deliveries because 1/3 of our hotel are now staying at home. So how do we meet their needs? And these are some of the things that we are facing. And I think it's not probably the fittest that will survive. I think it will be the smartest that will survive. The people who are thinking ahead who will survive. In terms of what you said about the furlough, I think at the beginning, the government did all they could in terms of 80% furlough. They did the bounce back loans. They did the grants. And to be, from a businessman point of view, I thought this is very good of the government. The government they're doing all they can to support these businesses. However, fast forward 5 months later, and what we see now is a lot of our businesses, we're dropping in sales with the latest restrictions. Where I'm from, the local restrictions have really has really dent on our business, but there isn't any government support.
Right, Lalon Bhai, you say the smartest will survive, but no matter how smart you are, but if you don't have financial stability, it is going to be difficult to run the business. And given that we may be on the verge of another national lockdown. A lot of people losing their jobs. I'm sure you understand that many people have been laid off from their jobs, and the unemployment is rising slowly but rapidly. How do you think, even if somebody's so smart, can survive without financial support?
Well, how did we do it during the lockdown? How come no restaurant, majority of restaurants did open during the entire lockdown, majority of restaurants? And that was because they persevered, and that was because they started thinking outside the box. I completely agree. When you are, you've got two choices. I think when the lockdown happened, when the lockdown was announced, I thought to myself, I have to close the restaurant. I came home, and I thought to myself, look at all this staff. How am I gonna? Where all this staff gonna go? Give me about half an hour, and I actually watched the video I did live on that day as well, and it sort of gave me the impetus to think, actually, I can actually do deliveries, and that's how we did it. And a lot of restaurants did the same. But I do agree by that. Smartness isn't always just going to get you over the line. This is a pandemic, and when we do really need government support to help us, the Eat Out scheme, for example, that was probably not, with hindsight, that was probably not a good idea to do Eat Out to help out during a pandemic. As a restaurant, it was excellent, it was very busy. But at the same time, I was a bit apprehensive to think, why is the government laying out Eat Out to help out during a pandemic? And what happened 1 month later, we have, rising number of cases. So I think whatever support the government gives, they need to do it fast, because this industry is sinking, and it's sinking very fast.
Samad bhai, let me ask you, if you think if there is another national lockdown, do you think how do you think business will cope if there was a national lockdown?
Hypothetically speaking, if you're saying if there is going to be one.
Oh, I say that because the Northern Ireland gone into national lockdown, the Wales gone into national lockdown from Friday. It's only a matter of time. The way the coronavirus is rising, I think today we around about 18,000 cases of coronavirus. The way it's rising, I think the Prime Minister would be in a very difficult position if he did not put another national lockdown.
Okay, I think putting another national lockdown, and then obviously you have to learn from what you've done and what they did before, having that 3-month lockdown, and as rightly said by Lalon, having the Eat Out to help out, as in hindsight, is a very good idea. I think one of those, we as an industry, we face many dilemmas, and a lot of predicaments. If Lalon or my restaurant didn't participate, I would have been the only restaurant in my town not to participate. So would I have done justice to my customers who perhaps would have liked to come into my restaurant to eat? However, because I'm not participating in this Eat Out to help out, a rightful discount that they should be getting has been withdrawn for the.
Let me ask a question to both of you. Do you think the Eat Out to help out was cause or partly the cause of increase in virus? Because we saw, whether in London or outside London, whether it's in north or south or east or west, people were queuing up outside restaurants, businesses was packed. Do you not think it would have been much better and effective if the Chancellor introduced the same initiative but said you would have to be takeaway or home delivery?
Okay, can I answer that first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, obviously I can't answer for any other towns or any other restaurants, but there were strict guidelines given to venues such as restaurants, etc., cafes, whereby, you had limited numbers, you had to have the distancing, you had to have all of the COVID measures in place. That was to eliminate this spread of the virus. Now, if everyone was following, and I mean everyone, that's not just the restaurant owners, but the general public who are actually eating out, a lot of them had a lot of disregard. In my restaurant, I'm quite lucky. I'm in a very nice area, but I've seen in many other places where there's total disregard for the COVID measures. People don't want to adhere to the mask. People don't want to stick to, not mixing with other tables, etc. And how do you enforce it? When back in July, when the go-ahead was given to the restaurants and cafes to reopen, it was a guideline whereby the staff should wear masks, face coverings, gloves, sanitizer, etc.
But you say this, Samad Bhai. In many restaurants, the staff even now don't wear masks. But bearing in mind, there was a very confusing message from the central government from the beginning. We don't have to wear masks. We can use masks. Mask doesn't protect us. Now, although the World Health Organization all along said people should wear masks, all of a sudden we must wear masks. So obviously, take that into consideration. But even the staff, many staff, I've been to many supermarkets where I have challenged the staff and security guards and restaurants. But I see many restaurants, not just our Asian restaurants, but non-Asian as well. People just don't wear masks.
Incidentally, I went into a restaurant this afternoon, and the restaurant staff, none of them had masks on. We had to ask for a sanitizer. These are protocols. These are protocols given by the government, whereby we have a sign on our door say, "Please wait here to be seated. Please use the sanitizer before entering." Such messages. Before even entering a venue. Now, my wife and I, we went into this venue today, and the meal was actually very, very good, but the lack of COVID measures was just astonishing. There was nothing to say COVID existed there.
Let me ask Lalon Bhai. Lalon Bhai, or Shah Bhai, you got two names. Shah Bhai, some of the questions that I have posed to Samad Bhai, and you in the same industry, you doing the same thing. What, and I know you make your trips to London just like Samad Bhai do, so you know about the both side of it. What do you think? What do you think of staff not wearing mask or not complying with the restriction, or also in terms of the eat out to help out that I mentioned?
So I think obviously it's a requirement. In my area specifically, I'm not sure about what I'm sure actually as well. The legal requirement is for staff to wear masks. So this is not an option. It's a legal requirement, and it's you as a restaurant owner. It is your legal responsibility to ensure that your staff, your team, are adhering to all the legal requirements set out by the government to protect diners as well as staff. So for any business not to adhere to these rules and regulations, I think I think they should look at themselves and ask themselves that, are they taking this seriously? Because any serious, responsible business would ensure that their staff and would wear masks, and there would be sanitizing in place. I mean, it's a legal requirement for you to have track and trace. It's a legal requirement for you to have masks on. It's a legal requirement for you to have risk assessments. So I think, this is serious. This is serious. This is about ensuring your customers are safe.
Can I ask you some?
Eat out to help out. I think in hindsight, when the eat out happened, it wasn't mandatory for staff to wear masks and gloves, and track and trace wasn't in place. So I think in hindsight, if we had those measures in place, legal measures, legal requirements in place, where there was track and trace and where there was masks enforced, and where you would be getting a fine if you didn't wear a mask or if customers didn't wear a mask, then I think it would have been very good.
But we had social distancing in place from day one almost, where people have to be socially distanced. But when there is people queuing up outside the restaurants, or even inside the restaurant, there's some of the table layout. It's not even a 1 meter, let alone 2 meters.
Yeah, I mean, during the eat out, you asked, do you think cases rose because of eat out? Uh, there's no scientific research to suggest if it was because of restaurants. So I don't want to answer that
Well,
question.
but Shabai, the scientific evidence wouldn't say anything about that because it's going to go against the government's own policy. Because
Yeah, but
the chancellor only last week was defending his policy, but the general public have seen this. We got comment on our Facebook page from a principal of a secondary school, Ashid Ali, by saying, "Good discussion, but you must all be extra careful to ensure our families are safe when they." I'm assuming he's saying when they go into the restaurants.
yeah, it's a good point. I can remember when I first reopened the restaurant, and I said we had a team meeting, and this was just before we were reopening the restaurant, and I said to my team, you have a responsibility to your family, that you come to your workplace in a safe environment. You do all the precautions that are necessary, that are required, that are advised. You come to this restaurant and you leave the restaurant in a responsible way where you sanitized your hands, because you have a responsibility to your family to go back home to your children, and where you've tried to eliminate as much as possible the presence of COVID. So yeah, completely agree.
Samad bhai, do you want to come in here?
I think restaurateurs, it shouldn't be blamed for this, because I think it's a lot of responsibility on the general public. I'm a general public as well. If I'm queuing up amongst 100 people, I should be asking myself, is that safe? Of course it's not safe. I should make a conscious decision whether I want to be queuing up in wherever venue, whether it's a restaurant or not. And if I'm in a restaurant and I go into that restaurant and I feel unsafe because either it's overcrowded, which it shouldn't be, but if it's overcrowded, then I've obviously made the wrong choice to come to this venue. I should leave. That's a decision totally placed upon the person eating out, if it's a restaurant that we're talking about. I don't think it could just be placed on the restaurant itself. Any irresponsible restaurants which are overfilling, overcrowding, obviously they should be reported.
Just to make absolutely clear, Samad bhai, we're not talking about any particular restaurants, but I think in general, like I said, whether from Scotland to Wales, Wales to England, I think in all three region had difficulties maintaining and enforcing during Eat Out to Help Out. People was going out. Obviously, there was quite significant discount, especially if you go out with your friends and family. And because we just came out of the lockdown, so yes, people wanted to get together, meet each other. Some people lost their loved ones during that time and never hasn't seen their family members and friends, and quite rightly so. But the problem was, like you said, yes, the general public has or have to take some sort of ownership, but at the same time, I personally felt the businesses also had responsibility to make sure that they were enforcing the rules the government have introduced to protect not only their staff but also their customers.
Of course, of course. I think on social media I've seen several pictures of people queuing up, maybe in their hundreds. How do you, as a venue? So it looked, from what I saw, it looked as if it was a queue to go into a nightclub, let alone a restaurant. So how do you, as a restaurateur, enforce 100 odd people down, maybe half a mile down the road queuing up because they want to? How do you enforce that? Even the police have a difficult time in enforcing that. So I think I certainly can't agree on the fact that the restaurant should take responsibility for others' actions. We, as far as we are concerned, if someone comes to our doorstep, it's our responsibility to make sure that customer is in a safe environment. Before this COVID thing, we've always had this liability. we're feeding customers. We have to make sure the customers are safe when they're eating in our restaurant. And that goes with food poisoning, hygiene, all sorts of things, whether someone slips and falls because it's a wet floor. There's so many liabilities, which as any business, that's a liability on our part, which we should which we should be responsible for, and we do take responsibility for that. But outside the venue, if there has not been any allocated queuing system, no one should be queuing for that long. I certainly not. It doesn't matter how good the food is. I will not be queuing up for 2 hours to go and eat out.
Just like you, I didn't go and queue up to any of the restaurants during eat out to help out, because I thought it was extremely unsafe for me to go and stand in among those so many people. Lalon bhai, let me change the direction of the question, and I want to ask you in terms of in Manchester, as you know, the Andy Burnham is fighting very hard to make sure he gets the 80% furlough scheme, right, as it was given right at the beginning by the government. Do you think if whether tier 3 lockdown or national lockdown that comes in, do you think many politicians should lobby government for the 80% furlough rather than the what is government currently offering?
Yes, completely agree. If there's a tier 3, there should be 80% like they gave previously. However, what I would also like to say is, regardless of we are in a national lockdown or in tier 3, if you look at restaurants as a whole, I would say a lot of restaurants right across the industry are suffering. They are having to lay off staff. They can't cope. The sales have dropped significantly. So we need immediate support, regardless of whether we go to tier 3 or national lockdown. The government needs to support the industry because, for example, the area we are in tier 2. Tier 2 says that you can't mix in a table with somebody who is outside of your household. So that's restricting one table per family, one table. And we've seen, at least 60%, about 40% of our customers have stopped coming over the last month. So that's 40% in sales less. We're making that up because of takeaways, but to be honest, this whole last month has been very, very uncertain for the businesses. So I would say the government needs to support, regardless of whether we go into tier 3, we need support right now. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, yes, sorry.
Yeah, Samad bhai, I want to ask, have you laid off anybody from your business because of coronavirus?
No, we haven't. In fact, 90% of my staff have been working, and I didn't furlough them because we did the deliveries. What I was about to say in relation to what Lalon bhai said is, in terms of family mixing, etc., what we have been finding for the past couple of months is we're getting a lot of tables of 2s, which means, boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband and wife, etc. So, all our tables of 4s have been made into 2. So obviously, we're already down in numbers in terms of the social distancing, having less tables. You're further down on numbers because any tables of 4s that you have socially distanced are filled by tables of 2. So it's not to say we don't welcome 2s, of course you do. But what I'm trying to say is a lot of people are being forced to come in as couples rather than with friends because they're afraid of the consequences. Where we are, I don't think we're still, you can still go out with your friends. However, people are taking that precaution and just come in as a couple. So, which further has an impact on the businesses itself in terms of revenue.
But Samad Bhai and Lalon Bhai, basically, we are not able to meet with other households in indoor places. Okay, we can go into restaurants and sit in two different tables, but we still can meet and socialize with group of 6 people outside in the parks, on the streets, everywhere else. Do you guys really think as a business that, obviously I sincerely believe it's going to have a significant impact, just not just in your businesses but all the other businesses, but do you really think this tier 2 restriction really going to work?
If I can, because I'm the youngest, if I could just answer that one. I think if you look at the statistics, you see that a lot of the cases are coming from the universities and colleges and schools. Yet the hospitality industry is being punished. So I think the government needs to start reevaluating where lies the rising of, because restaurants have done all we can to implement the measures that have been set out by the government. So for example, we have track and trace. You can go into a shop with 100 other people. You don't need to do track and trace. Restaurant, we have the track and trace system in place. So I think it's very confusing, and some of the regulations and some of the legislations that have been have been put in doesn't all add up. It doesn't make sense. A lot of inconsistencies. Do feel as if pubs and restaurants are being demonized?
Yeah, I think it's quite unfair just to separate the hospitality trade in general, cafes, restaurants, these coffee shops, etc. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because, as you say, and I've had first-hand experience in places that I've visited where, COVID measures are next to nothing. Like I said, this afternoon I went to a venue, there were no track and trace. There were no sanitizers, there were no masks, nothing to be seen. We asked.
Interesting. Sorry to interrupt, Samantha. Interesting you say this, because obviously the pubs, restaurants, nightclubs, the hospitality industry in general is being punished by the government. But you can go to supermarkets. There is no track and trace.
Yeah.
People don't wear masks. So, and when I challenged the security guard, when he was saying to me, 1 in, 1 out policy, and I challenged him why your customers are not wearing the mask, he just laughed. So do you think because the contradicting and confusing message has been coming from the government from day one, people are not taking seriously? Is that what it is?
I don't think it's the contradictory messages. I think people are just plain ignorant. They believe they're invincible. They believe they're not going to get this virus, and it's pure. I think they're very irresponsible, and they have disregard for others' health and safety.
Go on, Lalon Bhai, come in.
Sorry, you were saying.
I would say I would have to disagree with Samad Bhai. I think the government has been inconsistent. If you remember Boris Johnson, when you said, Samad Bhai just said, I think people think they're invincible. That was probably because the likes of Boris Johnson was saying at the beginning, just sing happy birthday and clap your hands. And he was seen shaking people's hands in hospitals. So when the top hierarchy of this country are not setting a good example, I think it has an influence on the rest of society.
I think you're absolutely right in that. I wasn't saying that the inconsistencies were not there. Absolutely, they were there. And as a person of authority, he should be setting an example. But we all trip up in our ways as a role model anyway. But what I was trying to...
but sorry, Samad Bhai, there is a big difference between you and I, because you and I are not the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Absolutely
he
not.
is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He has a responsibility to lead the country. No, I'm not sure about the role model for me or for you. I don't think we're going to follow him as a role model. But regardless of that, he is the prime minister and he has a responsibility, because we saw last week when the SNP member of parliament, after finding out she had coronavirus, she traveled all the way from Scotland to London on a public train. No due regard for anybody else.
Yeah, we've seen this time and time and again. People in authority and having total disregard to the rules that they make. We've seen this. I'm not any way defending them at all, but all I'm saying is, those of us as a general public, of course, everybody wants to have someone to blame. You can blame the government. You can, the government, they could have done a lot more anyway. From January when they found out all this was going on, what was done? Nothing was done until March. We can sing about this all day long, but until the general public as well takes some form of responsibility in terms of what they do and their actions, the government can't keep pushing money at you, and government can't keep shutting the country down to eliminate this. I think the general public also need to take some responsibility. That's what my question is, and that's what I'm trying to tell you.
And if government at the moment refusing, that's the question to both of you, they are refusing to give any kind of support like they did in early mid-March during the national lockdown. If they completely refuse to increase the subsidy and support, from your experience as a businessman in a hospitality industry, what do you think is going to happen to some of the smaller businesses, whether it's in hospitality or in any other industry?
Well, it seems, I think the government is trying to do a second national lockdown on the cheap. And I think local leaders, local MPs are fighting and trying to make a deal with the government that if you are to do a lockdown, then you need to pay the money. I've just seen whilst we were on here that the government has given Manchester a midday deadline to agree a lockdown deal. So, for example, if there isn't a deal in place and the government implements a national lockdown without the correct subsidies, this could be the straw that broke the camel's back. This could be the time where it's really going to cripple us. So we need the support of the government. And but yeah, I mean, I do agree. They can't just keep throwing money. It needs to be in a sensible manner. And I think with hindsight, I wish that they did not as much money during the Eat Out to Help Out and use that money to help us during this time. But it's in two minds. The economy needs to go on. We need to save lives, and I think getting that right balance and supporting small businesses is going to be really important, because this is going to be critical. And if in terms of the restaurant industry, the government has already said that we're going to have a very bumpy Christmas, and Christmas time is the time when even a businesses who struggle, they look up to Christmas as the time when they can pay off some of their debts, and people like Samad Bhai, during Christmas time, this is the time when they can go out, use that money to go on their 7th holiday to Dubai. But I really do think the government does need to support.
I can tell you that 67% of the population are backing a circuit breaker, so short 2 or 3 weeks national lockdown. 67% is a quite high percentage of the population of this country is now backing. Ireland just gone into lockdown as well for 6 weeks. So it seems the European countries, whether it's Italy, Spain, France, they are all kind of slowly but surely following the suit of another national lockdown. And I think Boris Johnson, just like he did in the March, his delaying tactic is going to cost more lives and cost businesses to close their doors. And like you said, Lalon, the Manchester has been given until midday tomorrow to accept what government has offered or they're going to impose. But I think you heard from Andy Burnham that he would not hesitate to go into legal challenge with government, because I think he's genuinely and sincerely trying to protect the businesses uh, and the local community that he knows so well that going to suffer so badly if there was another national lockdown without any kind of significant support.
Yeah, I mean, I'm up for a national lockdown if it means that the government will support businesses, and the government will support not just the businesses but the staff. So if they're going to give 80 and support businesses during circuit breaker, then I'm all up for that. I think I completely agree about what you mentioned about Andy Burnham. I think he's sincere about wanting to protect small in Manchester. What's your thoughts, Samad Bhai? I'm eager to know your thoughts.
My thoughts on the lockdown, to be honest, listen, I think the government seen and they're acting on what they've seen. And what I mean is, when they did the national lockdown, they saw how businesses adapted. They saw how businesses survived. You throw a baby in water, you watch it, struggle to swim, to come ashore. And a lot of businesses, they adapted. Sorry, there's a bit of an echo. They've adapted, and I believe it's made those businesses stronger. Some people just took the easy ride. Yeah, I'm going to close my doors, wait for whenever we're back open again. The government's paying the furlough. My staff are there. Nothing off my back. I'm not going to pay rent until sort of easygoing attitude. We could all do that. But at the end of the day, if you're a true business person and a true fighter, I think you should live up to the challenge and you should adapt in new ways. Any customers, as you say, 60% of the population have backed the lockdown. I'm sure that if that 60%, 67% is true in their ways, they will support local businesses with takeaways, with deliveries. However,
can I ask both of you, because obviously we know when the government gave the business loan and all the supports was available to some of the businesses, we know since then around £3 billion was claimed in fraud and in fraudulent, where people are not entitled to claim that money. If that wasn't happened, do you think the government probably would have offered more support? And what would both of you, the respectable and honorable businessmen, would say to those businesses who commit fraud in the name of business, and then they closing their business or closing their bank account after they getting 50,000 or 100,000 or whatever they are getting?
I think it's like anything, when one person commits the crime or sin, a lot of us are tarnished with that same brush. Unfortunately, yes, when you have any open door policies, it always leaves some people to abuse that, and it has been abused. I think the government perhaps could have done things a little bit different, in the sense that they could have, they did the government grants and then they did the furlough. They could perhaps, streamlined it a little bit, give it in bits, and rather than lump sum here you go, that's 50k bounce back loan. Here, that's the furlough. There you go, that's the grant, for your business rate. I think too much came too quickly, I know some people were saying things were coming too late and the businesses had to shut their doors. But what I'm trying to say is, when I say too much came too quickly, amalgamation of revenue income came in together rather than streamlining it. It should have been flowed through. So I think if you give any person an opportunity, any person who's in the mind of theft an opportunity with an open door policy, they will take advantage of that. That's not going to be stop now or in the future. That's always going to be the case. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. A lot of people are being chased up. So many people bought, sports cars, supercars, bounce back loans. The loans were supposed to be for your businesses. So I don't know. I can't answer that. You see a lot going on. and I'm sure it will be followed up.
I know they have recovered some of the money, but not all,
Yeah,
obviously. Lalon bhai, do you want, I would like you to come in on here as well, just to get your thoughts and views on that.
Yeah, I completely agree with what's said about an open door policy. It was probably perhaps the most easiest loan application or grant application, that's ever made. It came within 2 days, it came within one day. Everything happened very fast, and I agree it should have been given in stages. But when you have an open door policy like that, where everything's so easy, then there will be opportunities for those who've committed fraud to open up businesses and access the funds. I think it should have been a bit more stringent. The processes should have been more stringent in terms of the loan application, in terms of the application. I wouldn't have minded, if I had to show my bank statements, if I had to show evidences, no problem. I wouldn't. It was just really a case of just tapping up one information, and so the government probably needs to start looking at why they allowed such an easy process.
Do you think they were panicking? Samad bhai, let me ask you this. Do you think the government was quite anxious the business will go down, the economy will go down, and because they wasn't fully aware of what to expect, so they were just throwing money at it rather than having a sensible, constructive measures in place?
It was an unknown territory for them, and a lot of the times, a lot of people try and throw money at the problem, thinking that money will make it disappear. It doesn't. It just shields it or screws it for a while, but it will disappear. In fact, it makes it worse because that's what it's done. As rightly said by Lalon bhai, a reputable, a legitimate business will always have his trading record, always have his bank statements to hand. If there was some vetting done, to scrutinize the application, there should be some trading history. I've heard of businesses that were failing long before COVID came along. Maybe a year or so, 2 years, they were in debt up to their eyeballs. However, they applied for this government-backed loan, so they got the loan. They're on the furlough. They got the grant, and they're allowed to trade for another year on the back of the government taxpayers' money. Whereas this business would have probably closed its doors anyway, regardless of COVID. So, should those businesses be allowed to trade, and those businesses should have been allowed to have those grants and loans and what have you, access to that? I certainly wouldn't have allowed it.
Well, I guess they will soon find out when the tax year or tax return comes.
It will be too late because they've declared themselves bankrupt. They've had the money, they've ate the apple, they've had the pie. I live in a council house. What are you going to do? You're going to take my council house.
Now, yes, it is a point. We are almost end of our show. I'm going to give you all a minute each, both of you, to what would be your advice to the other businesses and to the customers who go to visit restaurants with families from same household. Let me emphasize that, not people from other household. What would be your advice? Lalon bhai, do you want to go first?
Okay, thank you. My advice to owners right across England would be that every opportunity, every challenge brings an opportunity. We can either feel sorry for ourselves or look at the opportunity and diversify our business. Look within your business and you will find the answer of how you can overcome these uncertain and challenging times. I'm a firm believer that the Indian restaurant trade has brought out the best entrepreneurs. We have inspirational entrepreneurs like Samad bhai, who I look up to, people who have made nothing into everything. We are an industry that our first generation of elders who were so resilient, we are their children, and we today can turn nothing into everything. And we need to take inspiration from our elders, and we need to ask ourselves and ask and bring out the best in us. And we can overcome this if we work collectively and if we work focused and if we are sincere to our customers.
Samad bhai?
Thank you. I don't think I'm in any position to advise anybody. However, I can certainly look. Every business model is totally different. It's all about where you are, your location, and I always say, a business is a package. You know, if it's a restaurant, they're not just coming for the food; they're coming for you as well. You know, you are selling your restaurant. You know, if you've got the right business model, you're treating your customers the way you'd like to be treated, you're going to have a good loyal following. Disregard of COVID or not, you know, I can't praise my customers enough. You know, I look up to them as if they were part of my extended family. That's the way I see them. You know, the help, the gratitude I got from them, you know, throughout lockdown. People were traveling, you know, 15, 20 miles to come and have a takeaway, where they had restaurants and other takeaways doing the same food. They were passing that to come to me. It's not just the food, you know, it's the way I'm always interacting with them, the way I look after them. A package, you know, it really is about you selling yourself out of the business. You know, if it's just a takeaway, you know, the person on that phone, how they're with their customer makes a massive difference. Remembering a customer's order, remembering a customer's name. When the customer phones in, you know, most of our orders are done online now, you know, because we've never done deliveries before. We started deliveries, but we decided to do it online only, credit card only, so there's no cash element. So you're eliminating the cross contamination of handling cash. However, any customers coming in, I know most of my customers by name. You know, I know you're trying to, it's a good CRM system up here, remembering their birthdays, their anniversaries, their daughter's name, their son's name, you know, little things that count, you know, that's important, because I take it personally upon myself to make sure I know what my customers want and how they'd like to be treated, because that's exactly how I like to be treated. When I go out to eat, I get irritated when people don't give you good service.
I'm coming to your restaurant, Samad bhai. That's it.
You will come to my house because I will serve you.
I'm coming, and I'm going to come to. But I want to say honestly, I want to say from bottom of my heart, thank you so much, Samad bhai and Lalon bhai, and thank you so much for being honest and open and transparent. And I genuinely wish both of you a lot of luck in your businesses, because you are two wonderful brothers, and I genuinely like both of you. I shouldn't be saying this, but I genuinely do. And you, both of you, are inspirational to the other younger generation who may want to run businesses. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'm extremely grateful to you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all my viewers for joining us today. You have heard from two of my guests. I hope the information you received was helpful. If you do go out to restaurants to eat, do stay safe. Do go out only with your household members, not with your friends or family members who do not share the same household. Do wear your mask. Do have your gloves on if you go to buffet restaurants, because many people do touch the same spoons. If you are a business, you can go on to www.gov.uk and you can get, if you type in on the search box, COVID business support, you can get all the information that you need. Once again, thank you so much for all our viewers joining right across from the world. Until next time, do take care and look after each other.